welcome to the Alex Urbina radio show. Today we're live in the KHTS studio in beautiful downtown Newhall, California. My lovely co-host today, Ellen Tunick, is on vacation, and stepping in for her today is my board op, Mr. Cody Como. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you.
Of course, man. Love to be here.
Yeah, this show's all about life coaching and how to create maximum value for yourself from a life coach or from the simple willingness to be open to all possibilities. The series is called Helping You Reach Your Full Potential. So I want to invite you to kind of be open to all possibilities, especially when it comes to parenting, because our topic today is how to create an effective relationship with your teenager. And in case you didn't know, I've been coaching leadership development for teenagers for a little over 20 years. So I get to be in the training room with teenagers from all over the world in different parts of different cities all over the states and different parts of the country. So I get a chance to be in the intimate setting with teenagers that are vulnerable enough that trust me enough to open up and share. And so I've been gathering insight from all these different teenagers and learning and helping parents really understand the new breed of teenagers coming up through the years. So I kind of wrote down some bullet points today to talk a little bit about how to, as a parent, create more effective relationships with your teenagers. So bullet point number one is you got to be willing to change your parenting style. What do I mean by that is I need you to be open to the possibility that your parenting style might still be the same style that it's been since your child was born. And what I like to call the controlling style parent. So if you can visualize that when your baby was born, you decided to be their leader. You decided that it was up to you and it was your responsibility to manage the outcomes of their life, to make sure that they don't touch things that are going to harm them. You know, you just decided that this is my child and I get to figure out how to take care of them and how to manage the outcome. And so you became the controlling style parent that has to kind of control and manage where they go, what they choose, those kinds of things. Now, that's the unconscious parenting style when we don't realize that we might have a choice or an option to choose or evolve or change that parenting style. So by default, we can just stay being that controlling style parent and parent our kids from that style the rest of their life. The issue starts to come in when teenagers start to try to figure out for themselves how powerful they are. They start to realize that, hey, I have my own voice. Hey, I can think for myself. Hey, I would really love to start owning my own life and making my own choices and so forth. And so what happens is that kind of teenager birtherism now starts to challenge the controlling style parent, and then now you're bumping heads and you're wondering why your child or your young teenager or preteen is not listening to you anymore. And that's because the controlling style parent doesn't work well with that independent teenager that's trying to figure out how to own their own power. So that's how we butt heads. Now the conscious parent starts to evolve and wake up and question some of their own parenting ways. They start to look and notice that maybe my son or daughter is growing and advancing in a certain way that now I need to start shifting my parenting style such that I'm supporting my child in developing and giving him or her the things that they really need from me. So Cody, hearing the controlling style parenting version, is that pretty accurate about most parents kind of settling in their default of parenting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in a level, right, it's kind of accurate for most people where they're going to kind of settle in where they're comfortable and then, rain or shine, they're going to stay there and they're not going to move because they're comfortable. Sometimes I definitely hear you saying it's hard to see sometimes that just because we're comfortable with a certain way of doing things doesn't necessarily mean the people around us are comfortable with it as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I think about the world and how the world, its job is to evolve. This planet, in its own rule, its job is to constantly be evolving. And as human beings, we have to learn how to evolve and change and develop and grow consistent with the world and the way that the world is evolving. And so does our parenting style. We have to learn how to grow and develop our parenting ways because our kids are growing and developing. And the teenager today is not the same teenager that it was 20 years ago. The way I look at kids is that now you guys are being born in this world of advanced technology, right? You guys, like, as soon as you're coming out of the womb, you're already got a smartphone, and you're already learning how to swipe, and you're learning how to do those things. So you're very advanced, you're very intelligent, and there's certain things that you need from us that maybe we didn't get from our parents, and by default we're parenting from that default of our own parents and what we learned from them. So our kids are demanding for us to learn a whole new style of parenting.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's even it goes so fast. I mean, I'll even admit, I'm not, quite, super old myself, but I look at little kids and just the way they kind of use iPads and touchscreen stuff. I'm pretty good with a mouse and a keyboard, but with a touchscreen, I'm still kind of fumbling around, and it's only going to accelerate, So it's really tough to find those kind of middle grounds and those common grounds where you can kind of relate to, I mean, like I said, I can only imagine in 10 years what it's going to be like for a kid growing up from, 2010 to 2020, what their life's going to be like. It's really hard to even fathom right now.
That's right. So I think the crux to this is, if you're open-minded parent and you're willing to acknowledge that maybe there is some controlling style in you and your parenting, and you're willing to reinvent yourself, if you're willing to learn a new style for this new human being called the teenager that might be your son or daughter, the next level that I'd like to introduce to you in parenting is called the inspiring parent. Think of the inspiring parent more like a mentor or a coach. Instead of coming with the answers, instead of bringing all of your parenting fears into the relationship, you're more of a hands-off, more of a space or a stand or a symbol of comfort or trust. You're a little bit more evolved as a parent, more like a grandparent, a really powerful, knowledgeable, wise elder, and your kids get to look at you like that and come to you and turn to you when they need advice, rather than you allowing your fears to be projected on to them and be brought into the relationship. So think of the controlling style parent versus the inspiring parent. How do I learn how to become an inspiring parent? And what does an inspiring parent looks like? Well, I can tell you that from my experience as my own personal journey, especially in parenting, an inspiring parent is one who really has mastered or is in the process of mastering more of my own insecurities and not allowing those insecurities to be projected into the relationship, such that my kids don't hear me in a negative way where I'm turning them off. I need to figure out how to master my own fears and my own insecurities in such a way that when I'm speaking to them or I'm looking at them or I'm engaging with them, that they're inspired by what I'm saying. They're inspired by what I'm not saying. That they're empowered by who I am for them in our relationship, rather than showing up the same way that they've always seen me since the minute that they can recognize you as their mom or their dad. So I think one of the most challenging pills to swallow as a parent is really looking at themselves and going, wow, maybe I am that controlling style parent. And what would it look like if I embarked on a new journey where I realized that the controlling style parent is really pushing my kids away from me, rather than learning a new style so that I can get them to buy in, so I'm drawing my kids to me and turning them more towards me and getting them to want to have conversations with me.
Well, also, one thing I kind of wonder is, because I know, being one not too long ago myself with teenagers, it's very easy for them to kind of, oh, yeah, that's great, yeah, thanks, yeah, and then just walk away and everything you said just went out the window. What does it kind of look like when you realize you are actually kind of in that mode where you are inspiring your kids and they're not just saying, oh, thanks, Dad, you're great, you're right, and just walk off and say, whatever, I don't care what he said. What are the signs that they're actually kind of getting it?
I think they're asking you more questions rather than, you making a suggestion and then buying into the, hey, thanks, Dad, I appreciate that, and then walking off. When they're really interested in what you have to say, usually after you give them some advice or some insight, usually they'll follow up with 2 or 3 more questions, and they'll linger around a little bit longer. Almost similar to the way they were when they were 5 years old. Because when they were 5 years old, they're like, Dad, what about this? And you go, honey, and then you give them an answer, and they go, and what about that? And what about this? And what about that, right? They were so curious to want to learn from you. Well, what happened to that little kid? Where is that little 5-year-old that you used to go, oh my God, this kid won't shut up. They're asking me so many questions. Your job as a parent is to figure out how to reinvent yourself to get that 15 or 16-year-old to be able to keep coming back to you and being inquisitive and wanting to learn from you, or wanting at least to hear your point of view or your insight and just be open to it. Not that they have to agree, but that you want them to come to you and just look at multiple ways of seeing situations and looking at possible problems, or seeing certain situations to help benefit them if they're able to see it like that. So I think that one of the signs is that they're really interested in what you have to say, and they don't just give you that, hey, thanks, Dad, appreciate it, and then walk off, right? Because we know sometimes that's a symbol for, yeah, like whatever, right? It's just a whatever type of a sign. So the controlling style parent versus the inspiring parent, I think we kind of touched on that in a broad way, and I wanted to introduce that to some of those parents that either have never heard that kind of a concept or never really saw them as the controlling style parent, because the way that you've been parenting is just the way that you are and the way you've been, and maybe you just didn't know there was another option. So that's number one. How to create an effective relationship with your teenager. The next thing I wrote down was you got to learn how to be more proactive in your parenting rather than reactive in your parenting. Now, what does that mean? Well, before I talk about being proactive, let's talk about being reactive. As a parent, when your son or daughter does something or says something that you're not in agreement with, or it triggers some fear in you, it's very easy to let that fear unconsciously trigger you to where you react. So here's an example. Your daughter comes home and she has, or your son, and they have a nose ring, a big round nose ring, and it's hanging, dangling from their nostrils. And they walk in and they go, hi, Mom, and you see it for the first time. Are you going to be reactive or proactive?
Well, at that moment, it's kind of too late for proactive, right? You're reactive at that point.
That's only if you're making the assumption that it's a permanent thing. Because I know they sell those rings that just they can clip in, and it's a temporary thing. But immediately when you walk in the door, you made an assumption that, oh my God, that's a permanent thing, and then the fear gets triggered, and then we react, right? And it could look 100 different ways. Oh my God, Christopher, why would you do that? Like, what are you doing, right? You just go into this reactive mode. So that's obviously an exaggerated example of what it's like to react, but there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of ways that we react in our parenting that doesn't allow us or give us the option to show up any other way because we're so unconsciously reactive. Now, you have to be hyper aware of, as a parent, of noticing all the times in a day in your parenting how often you react to things, like an automatic pilot. Another way you can look to see and notice how reactive you are is when someone comes to you and asks you a question, you got to ask yourself, how quick did I answer that? Did I even ponder about the question that I'm thinking about, or the answer, or even looking at myself and trying to come up with an answer? Or do we have automatic responses that when people ask us, we just grab from our automatic bank and just spin them back out, right? That's the reactive way as human beings. And I really want you to be open to the possibility that you're reactive as a parent. And if you're reactive as a parent, you're not giving your kids an opportunity to create any other new beliefs about you, like, wow, my mom really does care about me. Wow, my dad really is patient. They can't come up with those beliefs about you that are going to help create an extraordinary relationship with them if you keep showing up the same reactive way, which is allowing that your fear to trigger you and gives you a reactive response. So that's the reactive way as a parent. Being proactive is having developed the ability to be aware, self-aware, hyper-aware of, before you get to respond, you're going to stop, check in with yourself, maybe ask yourself a couple questions, or look to see where you're going to choose your response from. Am I going to respond from fear and doubt, or am I going to respond from being open-minded? Am I going to respond from trusting them? Am I going to respond from the belief that I have, the positive belief I have for them? So it's more of a mechanism that we have within us that you have to develop this conscious awareness to really think before you choose, before you respond, right? So think, choose, then respond, rather than seeing something and then eating immediately going, oh my God, right? Because oh my God's the fear, and then reacting. And a lot of times you know what I'm talking about, because there have been times where you've upset somebody, and then at times you have to go back and go, maybe they're upset because of the way I responded. I really didn't stop and think of what other ways I could have responded that allowed them to hear me, that I'm here for them, or I'm on their team, or I really want them to win. So when it comes to being an effective parent and creating effective relationships with your teenagers, you really got to learn how to remain calm when the winds change, right? You got to know how to just roll with things and remain calm when something's showing up in a way that you don't like, that scares you, right? Because kids will come in and they'll share certain things with us that'll press a button, and all of our fear wants to come up in that moment. You got to catch yourself, take a deep breath, and then respond maybe with a question, right? But it's more about who you're being when you're responding. And so if you can respond more proactively rather than reactively, I think your kids really start to listen and they respect you a little bit more.
Oh, I'm sure, because I also know, again, from experience, sometimes, teenagers will do things specifically to get a certain reaction. That's why we're doing it.
All right.
We're going to do something because I know, oh, it's going to make my mom so mad, it's going to make my dad so mad, it's going to drive him crazy. And so I kind of wonder, is there ways where you can kind of pick out, like, okay, when during the process of being proactive, like, they're just doing this to kind of get under my, like, they're doing this on purpose to kind of push my buttons. And is that kind of a good way to prevent yourself from kind of falling into the trap almost and, yelling and screaming when really that was what they wanted you to do the whole time?
Well, if you're being proactive, you're really conscious and aware, and you're kind of thinking about why they are doing certain things. So you can pick up on some of those signs when you're proactive versus reactive. When you're reactive, you can't see that game that your kid's playing, right? When you're proactive, you're starting to go, wait a minute, this is the second time he sprung this on me, or this is the fifth time that she said it to me like this way. So when you're proactive, you're really conscious and you're really aware, and you're able to see things that you can't see when you're reactive. When you're reactive, it's almost like you have these blindfold on, and you're just using your ears, and then you're responding without any other senses to see a bigger picture. So being proactive is just kind of allowing your eyesight to get clearer, and you're able to pick up and notice certain things that's right in front of you, or has been right in front of you a long time. You just haven't been able to see it. But that's what makes you a more effective parent, is to develop some of those tools. So being proactive versus reactive, and remaining calm when your son or daughter is showing up in a specific way that scares you, triggers some fears like, oh my God, if I don't course correct that, or if I don't change that behavior, then the worst is going to happen, right? My son or daughter is going to be out of control. They're going to get themselves arrested. They're going to get themselves hurt. They're going to go down this road that I can't get them back, right? Your mind starts making up out of fear-based parenting. It starts making up all these stories, and then you react. And a lot of times when we react are the moments that later on we look back and go, man, maybe if I wouldn't have reacted, it wouldn't have pressed triggers in them, and then we wouldn't. Now we're both reactive. If you've ever seen two people being reactive towards each other, you've probably seen it in a fight somewhere, either on YouTube or in real life, when you get two people that are upset at each other, to where it goes from words into a push, into a shove, into a full-on fist fight. And when you look at two people that are either arguing or fighting physically, it's two people that are operating from being reactive, and they're just reacting to each decision that they're making. And in a scenario like that, no one wins. It just takes one conscious person to go, wait, stop. What are we doing here? I love you. I love you so much that's why I'm responding like that, and maybe I shouldn't let my fear get the best of me, and I need to start thinking a little bit more about what I say. And what I really want to say to you, son or daughter, is I love you so much that when you speak like that, or when you say those kinds of things, my fear comes up as a mom that I'm going to lose you, or that you're really going to hurt yourself, or that you really mean what you say. And so that's the honest version of what I'm feeling right now. And maybe if you had the courage to be proactive and courageously honest with how you're really feeling, maybe your son or daughter now goes, wow, you've never shared that with me before. You've never been vulnerable enough to kind of speak to me and let me in on your side of the parenting. Now we have a whole new possibility to create a different kind of a relationship. So when we come back from the break, we're going to go through the last 3 or 4 bullet points on how to create a more effective relationship with your teenager. Stay tuned for more of the Alex Urbina radio show right here in your hometown station, KHTS.
Healthcare can be difficult if you're underinsured or have Medi-Cal. Samuel Dixon Family Health Center can help. Services are available on a sliding fee schedule. The mission of the Samuel Dixon Family Health Center is to give the Santa Clarita Valley access to affordable, quality primary care. There are 3 locations to serve you: Canyon Country, Newhall, and Valverde. Go to sdfhc.org for more information and to find the location most convenient for you.
College of the Canyon short-term classes begin in April and finish in May. Learn a new skill such as photography or career and life planning. Pick up a quick transferable class such as political science or math. Too busy? Take an online class. Textbooks too expensive? Search our class schedule for OER classes which don't require you to buy textbooks. Need to take a class this summer? Our summer schedule is already online. Visit canyons.edu/class schedule now.
Hi, Kirk Stinson here with Plumbing by Kirk, your hometown plumber. I want to stress to you how important it is to get proper advice on what to do in case of emergencies. Always know where your shutoff valves are to be able to isolate it and have the problem taken care of on regular hours and avoid expensive plumbing bill.
We invite you to visit our website for free plumbing advice at plumbingbykirk.com or give us a call, 263-6519. That's 263-6519.
My dad is the best plumber ever. Plumbing by Kirk.
Chocolate lovers rejoice! The Chocolate Pub is now open. All chocolates are handcrafted with unique flavors like cake batter and cheesecake, just to name a few. Gone vegan? Not a problem. The Chocolate Pub has vegan options for all drinks and chocolates. And if you're in a hurry, there's a drive-thru available for specialty hot chocolate, high-quality coffee, and chocolates. Stop by the Chocolate Pub for all things chocolate, located at 18715 Soledad Canyon, just west of Sierra Highway.
Hometown, your hometown station.
And welcome back to the Alex Urbina radio show. Today we're talking about how to be an effective, or how to create an effective relationship with your teenager. And we went over a couple of bullet points, and I'll just kind of briefly reiterate them. The first one was how to and be willing to change your parenting style and being open to the possibility that your parenting style is still that of a controlling style parent versus learning how to be more of an inspiring parent, how to be more empowering, how to be more of a mentor towards your kid versus sitting down, being the guru, being the expert of life, and telling them what they should be doing versus helping them make their own decisions, come up to their own conclusions, finding their own answers. That's more of what an inspiring, mentoring parent looks like. And the second thing was be open to the possibility that as a parent, you're more reactive than you are proactive. And a reactive parent cannot see that there is a certain way that you're showing up towards your kids that has them see you in a way that's not on their team to have them win. When you're more proactive, then your parents are able to see you as, you know what, the way that you're speaking to me now is, I think, what I've always wanted from a parent. I just didn't know how to articulate that. And I hear that a lot from kids in training rooms. They'll say, and it'll come in different versions, but they'll say a lot like, I wish my parents spoke to me, Alex, the way you spoke to me, or the way your staff interacts with me. And so it shows up a lot in the training rooms when kids get a different version of how to be spoken to, or how to be asked certain questions to have them look at themselves, rather than being told whether it's directly or indirectly, that the decision you're making is not smart, right? Or, hey, why are you doing that? Or being questioned like that. So being proactive as a parent in your parenting is you're going to get better results being proactive rather than reactive. Now, the third bullet point is going to be talk less and listen more. What does that mean? That means that when your kids, as they're growing up on their own journey of discovering who they are, and that's what they're doing on this planet, if you haven't realized that yet, is they're on this journey of trying to figure out who they are. What am I about? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And so they're in this self-discovery mode, whether it's conscious or not. They're just trying to figure out who they are, and they're trying to figure out how to flap their wings and figure out how to be able to one day fly away from the coop and go live on their own as a powerful young man or powerful young woman in the world. So in order to do that, what they need is a space for you to create for them, a silent space so that they can hear themselves talk it through. So in order to do that, you need to learn as an inspiring parent how to talk less and listen more to them. So what does that look like? For me, it looks like being more of a facilitator. So as a parent, you're not trying to be the parent that's going to put more information and advice into them, but it's going to be the kind of parent that asks open-ended questions and then shuts your mouth, open your ears, and let them do more of the talking. They should be doing 80% of the talking. You should be doing 20% of the talking. As the controlling style parent, you're used to doing 90% of the talking, and you barely give them that 10% to have their opinion or share, you know what I mean, how they feel about it.
Of course, and one of the things you're talking about earlier, I think, is kind of a funny point, because I definitely know a lot of times, kids, if they're talked to the same way all the time, they'll know how to react to that and how to respond to that. They'll know what to say to kind of wiggle out of stuff, but if you just kind of flip it on them and just ask different questions, they haven't stayed up all night preparing answers to those questions.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's
you can catch them easier.
Yeah, they can figure you out. When you're an unconscious parent, it's almost, and this is the analogy I like to use. In prison, there's a prison guards and there's the prisoners. The prisoners, their job 24 hours a day is to study the prison guards and to figure out patterns and systems. So once they figure out your pattern or your system as a prison guard, they're going to figure out ways how to expose that to get what they want. Well, kids do that too. They study and watch their dad, how he shows up in life, and they're watching patterns, and they're watching certain ways that you're doing, things you're not doing, things you're saying, things you're not saying, the line that you stand, the line that you waver, right? They're figuring all this out about you. And then they're watching mom, and mom does her little thing. Once they got you figured out, they know how to play both of you. They know how to play you by yourself, and they know how to play you off of each other. So they've already figured out how to be clever enough to either tell you what you want to hear. They've learned how to explain something to you that you buy, and then you walk away and you leave them alone. They've already mastered that. So as a proactive parent, if you have a conversation with them and you ask them open-ended questions that they weren't prepared for, like you said, they now have to reflect and go, and they got to look in, and then they have to have an authentic dialogue with you that's getting them to, the questions you ask them now gets them to really reflect and try to find some solutions or some answers for themselves. So when it comes to talking less and listening more, I want you to think of creating more conversations in your home with your kids and be the space for them to be heard. So, for example, if your daughter or your son comes in with a certain problem and they're venting their frustration, or you've identified that they're struggling with something, if you can see it more like, let me be a facilitator in this process and be this tool for my son or my daughter to help them figure out their own answer. Then what you're going to do is you're going to invite them to have a discussion with you. So it's whether it's in the car driving to practice, or at the dinner table, or it's in the living room, you're going to lower the TV, and then you're going to say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with you about this. And then start asking them open-ended questions, and then shutting your mouth and creating the safe space to let them talk. As they're talking and reflecting back on the question you asked them, they're now starting to find and discover their own solutions and their own answers. Then all you get to do is just nod your head with a smile and validate them that they're being heard by you. And as they're making these decisions or finding some of these solutions or answers, By you nodding, you're validating or affirming that, hey, you're down the right path. And then another great way to really help them in that scenario is to not make them bad and wrong of what answers they're coming up with, but also adding to some of the answers that they've come up with. Hey, that's a great point. I just thought of one myself, and then here's one. So you're inserting it. You're not making one bad and wrong and then replacing it, because they'll hear you as, and they'll make up a story that you only want me to hear what you want me to hear. You're not really interested in what I have to say and finding my own answers. So talk less, listen more, and create an opportunity for your kids to discover their own solutions and their own answers for themselves. And in order to do that, Cody, I think you also have to have this belief that your kids are capable and competent to come up with their own answers. If you have a kid that you've looked for evidence to prove that he's not smart enough or she doesn't have what it takes to come up with their own answers, that's why I'm here, you're going to struggle. You have to believe that deep down inside, even though they haven't proven it yet, that they have their own spirit, their own intuition, their own guide with goodness that's guiding them with the right answers to lead them down a path that's going to be beneficial for them. And then your job is to try to just ask them those questions to get them onto that path. Your job isn't to give them all their answers, be their guru, be the expert of their life, because all you're going to end up doing is pushing them away, because that's not what kids want to hear, right? Kids want to hear that you believe in them and you asking them the questions so that they can, together you guys can come up with some solutions that empowers them.
Well, then also, because I know it's most of the time when we come into stuff, we're trying to come from a good place. Most people don't think of themselves as, oh, I think my kid's stupid, so I'll let them talk.
Absolutely.
So how do you kind of find that line where you realize, like, holy cow, I'm doing this for good reasons, but I think, how do you kind of remove yourself and figure out that I'm going about this wrong? I have good intentions, but I'm going about it wrong.
That's a great question. It's actually happening right now because I'm having this discussion and because I'm giving myself permission to talk about it. Some parents are listening going, oh my God, I do that. They might not be saying it out loud, but it's that little voice in the back of their head that's saying it to them. Now, some of you don't realize you have a little voice that's talking to you. And if you don't know what little voice I'm talking about, it's the little voice that just said, what little voice is he talking about, right? We always have this little voice that's chattering behind in the background. And as I'm talking about this subject on the radio and you're listening, I know there are some of you that are going, oh my God, I do that. So it's this just having this an awareness of someone else talking about the possibility that you could still be this controlling style parent that still thinks that you have all the answers for your kids, and you just assume that role, and you've been assuming it, totally unaware that by being that controlling style parent, you're in the space for them to grow. So if you occupy more of that space, your kids only have 5% to get in there and try to figure out who they are. They can't. They can't figure out who they are in a space that you're all in it. You got to learn how to step out of it, create that space for them to jump in, and then they get to figure out who they are while you're on the outside coaching them from the outside, pointing certain things to them. Just like a coach's job is to not do your job for you. They're not going to go, give me that bat, and let me show you how it's done, and then get in the game and swing for you. The coach's job is to sit on the outside, create the space for you to play the game. You get to play the game and make the mistakes and then, hit the home runs or score the touchdown. But they're coaching you from the outside as though you're capable of finding that inner champion inside of you and then figuring out how to get you to discover that for yourself. So that's number 3. Number 4, the bullet point is, and I said this earlier, but I actually wrote it down as a bullet point. So in order how to create an effective relationship with your teenager, another distinction is to ask open-ended questions and plant empowering seeds. Ask open-ended questions and plant empowering seeds. So if you want an example of what an open-ended question sounds like, it sounds like this. When your son or daughter starts to share with you their concern or a problem that they might have or a situation that they're facing that they're unaware of how to figure it out, a good open-ended question is well, how are you going to handle that? How are you going to figure that out? Or what do you plan on doing? Right? Those are open-ended questions. how are you going to handle it? What are you going to do about it? And then after the open-ended questions, you can also plant empowering seeds. Like, I know you got this. I know you'll figure this out. I believe that you have what it takes to handle this, to figure it out. And if not, I'm here for you. So it's to plant empowering seeds, reminding them that they are that competent enough to handle their own circumstances. And I think that's the number one thing that parents either don't know or realize, that that's their job, is to empower their kids. We think from the controlling style parent that we got to fix them or fix the problem for them or find their answers for them. So if your kid comes to you and has a problem, are you the one that goes, let me call, I know some people, let me call them, let me figure this out for you? Or do you go, how are you going to handle that, son? Like, where's the starting point? Do you guide them down the process with questions, leading them down this road for them to decide at each stage what choice they're going to make and walking them through that process? Or do you jump in there trying to control and go, let me handle this for you, move out of the way? If you're jumping in there and trying to handle all their circumstances for them, there's a good possibility that you don't believe that they're fully competent because of what they've shown you in the past, right? Because as parents, sometimes we collect evidence from your past that, well, up till now, he hasn't shown that he could do it. And then sometimes my job as a coach is to go, well, have you gotten yourself out of the way to even give them a chance to make some mistakes and guide them down that process? Or do you just expect them to wake up one day and just be this powerful young man that you expect them to be? So I think that's, one of the main questions you want to ask yourself is, am I asking enough open-ended questions to lead my son or daughter down this path so they can answer those questions and realize for themselves how powerful they are? And then I want to throw this at you, Cody, as a young person yourself, just recently coming out of your teen years, stepping into adulthood. How valuable do you think it is to have parents sit down and ask you open-ended questions, assuming that you have your own answers, that I don't have to figure out your answers for you?
Well, it definitely can be kind of, like, I guess, like, empowering is a good word. It kind of makes you feel a little bit more, you have more agency yourself. You can go out there and do things. I think that's definitely one thing that's tough, kind of making that transition from a little kid to a teenager, is, finding those lines where normally your parents would step in, where you have to cross that line yourself now, and now it's not. I think a really funny example I see, I know a lot of people my age whose parents make doctor's appointments for them, and they're 25 years old, because they just never did it. They never called the doctor. They never called their dentist. They were just told to go on Wednesday. That's when your appointment is. So I think it is interesting when you finally start realizing, like, oh, I have to do this now. I have to go call them and do this. It's not get your oil changed. I have to realize my car needs to get oil and go do it myself, and I definitely think that's one of the nice way to bring them along, because I know for a lot of young people, their favorite answers to questions are I don't know or nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What'd you do today? I don't know. You know what I mean? So when you get past that and you kind of get them active and thinking, it does kind of, start activating other parts of your brain you weren't thinking of before.
Yeah. I've heard stories, too, of parents that have gone with their kids to the college, on their opening day, and, like, helping them, bring their stuff in and folding their clothes and iron and sending them food. And, you got to ask yourself, at what point have I become an enabler to my kids? Where I've done it for them unconsciously and unaware, that I might have this belief that I don't think that my son or daughter has what it takes to either learn how to be self-sufficient, or because I have the evidence that she doesn't do her own laundry, that she can't. And you just got to learn how to, a little bit of time, dial yourself back and remember that your job is to teach them how to be self-sufficient, how to think for themselves, how to do for themselves, so that at a certain point when they're ready to transition into the world, they're flapping their wings and you go, man, I put a lot of man hours into teaching my son or daughter how to think for themselves, how to think outside the box, how to be creative enough to not accept no, or your job is to build them up and prep them. But as a controlling style parent, you're not doing that. You're actually not setting them up to win. You're making it more challenging for them to figure out that they are competent, they are powerful, and they can think for themselves and figure out for themselves. And then you're wondering why, your son's 30 years old, still sleeping on your couch, playing video games, all night and ordering pizza on your credit card. At a certain point, you got to go, man, I don't want that. So when my son is 7, when my daughter is 9, I need to start shifting my parenting style from that controlling style parent into the more of an empowering, inspiring parent by asking open-ended questions with the assumption that they are smart, they can do for themselves. I'm just going to be that facilitator, give them the space to come up with their own answer and then test it out. And while they're making the mistakes, pick them back up off the floor and go, hey, good job, you tried it, let's try it again. Your job is to develop your kids into slowly one day realizing that they are these amazing, powerful human beings, and then go off into the world and create something extraordinary. All right, the next one is you have to model the behaviors that you expect from your kids. So here's an example. Taking responsibility for a situation that either you didn't cause or you didn't create. If you learn the art of taking responsibility for everything and you practice articulating that to your kids, by virtue of modeling, they're going to see what it's like to own up to things. So here's an example. If my son comes back or my daughter comes back to me and has a situation and they want to blame me. Mom, you know what? If you would have done this for me, if you would have did this for me, right? And they're being the ultimate victim. Now, they're expecting you, right, when they're blaming you, they already know what the response you're going to give them. You're going to now throw it back at them and you're going to be blaming them. So what we do is we just keep blaming each other. Now, what would it look like if you go, you know what, Kelly, you're right. I get to own the piece that I played, the part that I played in this scenario. So here's what I'm owning. I'm willing to own that I made an assumption that you had owned this and it was yours and that you were going to drive it, and I shouldn't have done that. So that's my bad. I get to own that. I should have had a conversation with you. I should have asked you, hey, are you going to drive this? Are you the one that's going to take responsibility for? I should have had that discussion with you, and I didn't, so I own that. You're going to blow your kids away because they're going to go, where's my mom at? That's not my mom. Did aliens come down and abduct my mom? Because my mom doesn't take responsibility hardly for anything. And if she did, she doesn't do it on most things. But what you're going to start doing is you're going to start teaching your kids how to own either all of it or a portion of it. Even a portion of it or a piece of it is a starting point. Your job is to model the behaviors at which you want or expect your kids to be showing up to you. I hate to say this, and I'm glad I'm saying it as we're going out on a break, but I want it to land. If you're the type of parent that is looking at your son or daughter and you're wondering why they don't show up the way that you want them to or expect them to or believe that they should be at that stage already, it's because there's a big portion of it that you haven't been modeling it to them. Because our kids are smart. They watch all of the things, the bad habits that we do, all the things, the dysfunctions that we've adapted to, and we just are being like that. They pick up on that. Your kid is a mini-me. They are almost exactly like you. And it's probably why you butt heads. But it takes for one of you to decide that you're going to change, evolve, grow, be the model, be the one that's going to set the context, set the tone for change. And I guarantee you it's not going to be them. They just aren't aware enough. They're not conscious enough. They're too immature. And your job as a parent, if you decide, is to go, you know what, I want my son or daughter to develop like that. And in order for that to happen, I have to be willing to go there first. I got to be willing to look at some things, make some changes within myself, show up differently so that I'm modeling that to them, and then they start being like that themselves. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. Stay tuned for more of the Alex Urbina radio show right here in your hometown station, KHTS.
Stone Oven, the healthy alternative. You've never tasted a sandwich like this before. Gourmet bread cooked before your eyes. Stone Oven at the food court at Valencia Town Center.
Save at the best Santa Clarita restaurants. Restaurant Row, where everything is half price. Click on hometownstation.com and discover incredible savings. Online or at our radio station, everyone saves with Restaurant Row. Check it out at hometownstation.com. Restaurant Row, where everything is half price.
The Art Gallery of Santa Clarita Artists Association, located in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Railroad and Main, features local members' original artwork with changing exhibits every 2 months. Purchase affordable art for your home or as gifts. Open Friday through Sunday or by appointment. Artists wishing to join the SCAA can visit santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming shows, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
Santa Clarita, bedbugs are taking over our city. They've invaded our homes, our businesses, and most importantly, our sleep. If you have suspicious bites that appear nightly, or have a bug that you need ID'd, your best option is to make one call to All Pro. We offer a 100% guarantee that your bedbug issues will be solved with heat in one treatment. No need to tent or spray your house with chemicals. Heat is all you need. Call 661-298-2200 or text me a bug picture to 661-645-0540. It's time to sleep tight again, SCV.
Indulge yourself in a world of wine at the 7th Annual Sierra Pelona Valley AVA Wine Festival, Saturday, April 6th from noon to 4 p.m., benefiting the Zonta Club of SCV. Get your Chardonnay on with live music, gourmet food, handmade crafts, and the best local wines, beers, spirits, and ciders Santa Clarita has to offer at Reyes Winery. Dionysus dilettantes and wine connoisseurs alike will enjoy this festival. Sponsored by Reyes Winery, Pepsi, Anheuser-Busch, California Bank and Trust, and Mercedes-Benz of Valencia. Visit reyeswinery.com to purchase tickets. Must be 21 or over.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome to the Alex Urbina radio show. The following is paid programming and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of KHTS or its ownership.
Welcome back to the Alex Urbina radio show. We are live in downtown Newhall, California on this beautiful Friday, the day after the Dodgers' big win. I happened to be at that game yesterday. It was amazing. I'm excited for the Dodgers. Go Dodgers. I got today my board op, Cody Como, joining me on today's show. We were talking about how to create an effective relationship with your teenager, and I went through some bullet points. I'll kind of go over them really quick and start from the top, and we'll wrap the show up. Number one was be willing to change your parenting style. There's a good possibility that you are still the controlling style parent that you needed to be when your kids were little. It was needed, it was necessary to make sure your kids didn't stick things into an electric outlet or hurt themselves. And however, that's what was needed when they were young. What they need from you now as they start to hit their age 7, 9, 12, they need you to be more, shift into more of an empowering parent, more inspiring, more of a coach, more of a mentor, and learning how to be that kind of a parent for them. If you learn how to shift into that, you're going to notice that the teenage years are going to flow a lot more healthier. Your kids are going to be inspired. They're going to chase after their dreams. They're going to have been taught how to pick themselves up after making a mistake, not beating themselves up, and then going back into the game, right? So there's a lot of benefits for you learning how to shift your parenting style. And then the second one is be proactive rather than being reactive. There's a good possibility in your parenting style you are reactive because of your fear of what you're afraid your kids are going to do if they keep going down that road, rather than, trusting and being more proactive in your parenting. I had not too long ago, I was in a coaching session with a mom, and she said something to me about her kid had made, I think the kid was like 9 years old, and they said, "Mom, I want to be a photographer when I grow up." And then I think the mom had shared with me, she said to her son, "No, you don't want to be a photographer." And I looked at her and I go, "What are you talking about? Why would you say that to him?" And she goes, "What, was that bad?" And I said, well, it's not bad or wrong. It's just, that the little kid's looking at you for evidence to validate that they can be a photographer if they chose to. And you, in that moment, your fear came up from your own past of whatever story you made up about being a photographer. And in that moment, that fear caused a reactive response. Instead of stop, take a deep breath, trusting that a 9-year-old's going to go through 1,000 different things that they're going to want to be when they grow up. But if you're already reactively shutting them down on all of them, can you imagine some of the damage that you're doing psychologically and really kind of tainting their spirit of believing they can do anything they want? So a reactive response would have been awesome. High five them to validate them and go, honey, you can be whatever you want. If you want to be a photographer, you go for it. And then trust that there's going to be 1,000 more. Mom, I want to be an astronaut. Mom, I want to be, a bum. Mom, I want to, whatever. And your job is to just keep encouraging them and trusting and not letting your fear come up like, no, if I don't course correct that he might actually be that, right? That's operating from fear-based parenting, and that's how the reactive part comes out. And then the next one we said was ask open-ended questions. If you don't know how to do that, you got to learn. You really have to learn how to facilitate this process in a discussion where you ask open-ended questions, where you lead them down this path with your questions for them to come to their own conclusion or figure out their own answers. And then you also want to plant these empowering seeds like, I know you can do it, I believe in you, or hey, you've shown that you're great at that, you have that amazing ability, of course you can do that. So you're going to plant these powerful seeds while you're asking open-ended questions. And then the second to last bullet point that I wrote down was you got to learn how to model behaviors that you expect from your kids. So if you're expecting them to show up in a certain way, like taking responsibility for their life or the decisions that they made or the mistakes that they made, you're going to have to learn how to model that in real time in their face. And the way you teach them is to model. The way you don't teach them is to go, son, why aren't you taking responsibility for what you did? And then pointing out what they're not doing right. That doesn't teach. What teaches is by modeling. You can maybe point out, hey, do you notice that in our relationship that I'm doing these things? It's very easy if I'm doing them that you can do them too. You could do it in a more general way, but the best way is to model those behaviors. And then the very last bullet point on how to create an effective relationship with your teenager. If we had a drum roll, I'd have you play it, Cody, but sometimes I throw things in there in that moment and it's very challenging. But the very last thing is going to be to acknowledge and affirm your kids more often than not. You really have to, and this is an art form. It's something you have to learn how to develop, and it doesn't just happen automatically. Because I think as parents, we're always looking more at the things that our kids aren't doing right than we are looking for the things that they do, that they need to hear the validation, and they need to hear it from you. They need mom to stop and witness, be a witness to, son, I watched you the other night when we were at dinner, how you opened the door for the young ladies that came in, and man, it reminded me what a gentleman you are. I noticed that you picked up that trash when no one was looking, and you took care of your sister, and what a great brother you are. Your job as a parent, and there's many jobs as a parent, but one of them is to really acknowledge and affirm the greatness of our kids. You have to be conscious, present, aware, and really observing them in their daily life and speak more into their greatness. You got to speak more into the ways that they're showing up that actually does inspire you, that does empower you. And the more you speak into that and validate that, just by nature, they start to be that more in their life. And that's all the time we have. The good news is we're here every Friday, live on the air here at KHTS. Please follow me on Facebook at Coach Alex Urbina. I'm also on Instagram and YouTube. I might be old, but I still get on there every once in a while and post a picture. Thanks for joining us on the Alex Urbina radio show right here in your hometown station, KHTS.